Thank you, Jasmine and Florida. That has been a great introduction. And good afternoon, everyone. Or should I say good evening? In either way, thank you all for coming. I hope you're enjoying the conference as much as I am doing. The talks have been excellent so far. Today I'll be talking about keyboard accessibility. And before I talk about keyboard accessibility, how many UI developers are here in the house? Can you give me a cheer? Oh yeah, that's quite a few of you. And how many of you use Control-C, Control-V or Command-C, Command-V? Yeah, that's quite a few of you. So probably you like keyboard accessibility too. So today I'll be talking about keyboard accessibility, why it is important, what are the most common issues faced by a user who rely on keyboard, and how to make web applications keyboard accessible. So when I talk about Control-C, Control-V or Command-C, Command-V, it's probably a good to have feature for you, but not a necessary. But there are users for whom keyboard is absolutely necessary. But let me take a moment to introduce myself. Jasmine and Florida has already introduced me. Let me share a quick timeline of my experience with web accessibility. Once again, my name is Sarvodham Bandyopadhyay. I'm a front-end engineer at LinkedIn. I've been programming for a long, but I've been developing web applications since 2006. And anybody knows why 2006 is a milestone in web development? That's the year when jQuery's first version was released. I didn't know about it. Life would have been a little bit easier. But moving on, I got introduced to digital accessibility for the first time when I was contracting for British Telecom in an internal exhibition in BD Belfast. But I didn't understand much of it. It just went over my head. My formal introduction to web accessibility happened when I joined Yahoo as a part of the onboarding process in 2011. In 2013, I came across a presentation by Leonie Watson titled Design Like You Give a Damn, Practical Accessibility for Web Pros. And that's the moment when I realized the criticality of digital accessibility. Since then, I tried my best to develop or to make all the applications, all the web applications accessible that I have developed. And this presentation is available on YouTube, so if you get a chance, do take a look at it. I would highly recommend this one. In the same year, I presented at YUI conference about accessibility and YUI, along with Ted Drake. In 2016, I joined LinkedIn's core accessibility team. And I learned the most during my 1.5 years with the team. Currently I'm working for LinkedIn's enterprise product. But yeah, that's a quick introduction about what I know about accessibility, and without any further ado, let's move on with the topic. But before I dive into keyboard accessibility, let me share the 4 key principles of accessibility. In order to be accessible, a UI must be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. These principles are often referred as 4. And WCAG, quick reference, WCAG stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. I think pretty soon it will be called as accessibility guidelines, which has done an excellent job in categorizing all the success criteria with respect to poor. And as you can see in the screenshot, this is the perceivable. And if I could have taken a larger screenshot, you would have seen operability, understandability, and robust. Keyboard accessibility belongs to the operability criteria of poor principle. As I said earlier, many users with motor disability highly rely on keyboard. Also, many assistive devices like screen reader, they emulate the keyboard. So if an application is not keyboard accessible, it's largely not accessible. And it's going to impact the highest number of users, making keyboard accessibility the most important, or one of the most important need for digital accessibility. In order to be keyboard accessible, any UI must be navigable and operable using keyboard alone. And when I talk about navigation, the users primarily uses tab and arrow keys to navigate a UI. And to operate, space and enter key is used, primarily. There could be sometimes an application which can also provide keyboard shortcuts, like if you go to twitter.com or youtube.com, you can press shift question mark and you can see a keyboard shortcuts which are available out there. So this is a video which demos the tab and arrow navigation. Notice that the UI reacts to the tab and the arrow press. And you can see the symbol corresponding to the key press at the bottom left corner of the video. Tab is primarily used for forward navigation, as you can see that I'm moving forward. And Shift tab is used for backward navigation, so which you can see that I'm pressing Shift tab and moving back. and the arrow keys were used when I was in that widget. Primarily, arrow keys are used for groups, like radio groups, drop-down options, or any sorts of custom widgets primarily. And in this video, you can see the space and the arrow keys in action. So when I press the enter and the space, sorry, not the arrow, space and the enter, the button reacts to it and modifies its states. There are many ways, and web application can introduce difficulties for a user who rely on keyboard. Few of the most common issues would be mouse-only interaction, lack of focus indicator, non-deterministic navigation, and insufficient tab navigation. Mouse-only interaction happens when certain functionality can only be performed using mouse or a pointing device, and by no other means. This video demos a mouse-only interaction. Notice that the mode drop-down is not reachable using a keyboard. Like I'm pressing the tab key and the shift tab, and there is no way I can reach it. And the mode drop-down only appears when there is a mouse over. We must ensure that every action, every interaction that can be performed must also be performed using keyboard alone, and to avoid mouse-only interaction. Focus indicator, in my opinion, is the most important need for successful keyboard accessibility. Focus indicator visually identifies what is the current active element or the current focused element. Without a focus indicator, a sighted keyboard-only user has no clue what is the current active element. And without the knowledge of current active element, a sighted keyboard-only user can neither operate nor navigate. So, focus indicator for a sighted user is equivalent to the mouse pointer for a mouse user. Often, the focus highlight is suppressed using CSS. You probably have seen this kind of style in your style sheet. I'm not telling you if you have it, but it's often used. Imagine accessing a web page using mouse, but no mouse pointer is visible. If you find it hard to imagine, try adding this style, cursor none, to all the elements of your page. Seriously, you try it, and if you're still kind of not getting the point, see a video in action. So this video demos the no mouse pointer scenario. See that when I check that style, the mouse pointer hides. And without the mouse pointer, there is no way I can use this style. This is totally inaccessible for me. And when there is no focus indicator, a keyboard-only user experiences exactly the same. So the next one this is a video which will display the focus indicator issue. You can see that I'm pressing the tab key, and there is no way I can identify what is the current active element in this page. So I cannot take any action. I am using a Chrome extension to force highlight the focused element, and that's the Chrome extension which I use. Is called focus indicator. No point for guessing, and it's developed by me. So if you feel like, you can check out the Chrome extension. And I was surprised to find that, okay, there are 1,890 users. I didn't expect that. I actually built it for me when I was part of the accessibility team to carry on the audit. But yeah, that's great. There are people who are using it. So as focus indicator is equivalent to mouse pointer, focus outline none is equivalent to cursor none. So if you do not have cursor none in your style sheet, you must not have focus outline none too. And it's worth noting that there could be situations where the default focus indicator is not helpful, probably due to the background color or maybe the lack of space. In such scenario, we must ensure that there is a custom visual clue so that the user, a sighted keyboard user, can identify the active element. But sometimes you might need to suppress the default focus indicator. Maybe the designer has told you that it doesn't look pretty. In those kind of situations, please compensate with something else. There must be a visual clue for an active element. Deterministic tab navigation is highly desired. As shared earlier, keyboard users primarily rely on the tab key to navigate. The order in which the interactive elements receives focus is called tab order. It is expected that tab press will focus the next visible element, which is in the logical order. Or in other words, the tab order must be in sync with the visual order. Consider the tab navigation in this video. You already saw part of the video, but once again. So as I'm pressing tab, it matches the user's expectation, and it is actually focusing the next element in the visual order. But consider the tab navigation in this video. I'm pressing tab. Once again, I have enabled focus indicator out here, and you saw that from the main logo, it went to the sign-in profile and then it is moving here and there. So it's a very non-deterministic behavior which can lead to cognitive overhead for an user. So we should avoid this. And if we really want to avoid this, try not to use positive tab indexes and change the visual order using CSS. Often we use CSS floats. That was the reason behind the previous video. CSS float was used. And flex order, these are the two things which can create this issue. So rely on the DOM order if you really want to have a deterministic tab navigation. Also, talking about tab navigation, I feel obliged to talk about event.prevent default. This is very powerful. And with this powerful, we can break things. As the API name suggests, it prevents the default behavior. So if event.prevent default is used without any check as a keyboard event handler, it will just break the tab navigation. Because tab presses will also get suppressed, and which will result in tab trap. So a keyboard user will not be able to navigate any further. So we could mitigate this by either focusing a desired element or not executing event.prevent default if tab is pressed, or maybe just executing event.prevent default for certain keys. In this example, I'm executing event.prevent default for up and down arrows. So the moral of the story is never to trap the tab press for a successful keyboard navigation. Insufficient tab navigation is quite common in dynamic UI. It is expected that the actionable elements of an updated UI can be navigated by subsequent tab press. Often that's not the case. Let's take a look at this video. You can notice that on activating the profile icon, a modal is displayed. But on pressing tab, I cannot reach the actionable elements in this modal, but I am still navigating in the background. So for a keyboard user, this totally creates a blocker accessing this UI. Fortunately, what's that? Something happened. Yeah, no, it's all good. So fortunately, it's relatively easy to avoid these common pitfalls if we follow the fundamentals. The first and foremost is semantic HTML. I'm sure you all know what semantic HTML is, but just for the sake of presentation, here is a quick refresher. Using heading tags for headings, that is H1 to H6, using ahref for link, using button for button, and so on. Semantic HTML allows the markup to be system interpretable, so that it can be presented meaningfully in other ways. So here's the screenshot of semantic HTML Wikipedia page with voiceover rotor currently visible. And as you can see, the voiceover rotor is displaying all the headings available in this page. And using this interface, a voiceover user can quickly navigate to the desired heading. Semantic HTML is not only important for accessibility, but also for search engine optimization. So in this screenshot, Bing is utilizing the semantic structure of the documents to provide a glimpse of the content. Not all search engines display results in similar fashion, but they do rely on semantic clarity to index the results. Unfortunately, semantic HTML is often overlooked, and it needs more love. Semantic HTML, using semantic HTML, we can achieve accessible UI with lesser amount of code than non-semantic one. Let's take a look at a minimalistic example. A control which looks like a button and will alert hello there when activated. So for the markup, let's start with the most unsemantic element for this use case, a div. And for the script, I have a grid function which alerts hello there, which is being added as the click handler to this div. On clicking this control, which looks like a button by the way, the desired alert message is displayed, which is great. But this control is not reachable using keyboard and thus not operable, resulting in mouse-only operation. The reason, div is a non-focusable element, and any non-focusable element cannot be reached by tab press, that is via keyboard. Tab index 0 to the rescue. I'm sure you've seen this kind of code a lot. What tab index will be doing, tab index will make this div a focusable element and will insert it in the natural tab order. So now this element is reachable via keyboard. You see that I press tab and I reach there. I'm pressing enter, I'm pressing space, it doesn't react. So adding a key down handler helps. So now I have a key down handler, a function called kd handler, which is attached to this div. And this KD handler function invokes the same greet function if enter or space is pressed. And now this button, or the control which looks like button, is keyboard operable and reachable. But we still can't call this a button. A screen reader doesn't consider it as a button. So we can use ARIA out here. So we can add role equals button, and then screen reader will interpret it as a button. So finally, this is a button, no more other control. But using a button would have been resulted in less code. The markup would be just button. And the same greet function is being used as a click handler. That's all. Really, that's all, nothing else. No need for tab index 0. Button is a focusable element by default. So by pressing tab, we can reach the button. No need for role equals button, because button is a button. We don't have to make it look like button anymore. And also, the icing on the cake, no need for the explicit key down handler. On the space and enter press, the same click handler which was attached to the button will get invoked. So less is more. Here is a screenshot of a code pen where I have summarized all the use cases that we have discussed so far. But you might be wondering, this is such a big conference, EmpireJS, do we really need to talk about these fundamentals? Are we really not aligned with these fundamentals? Unfortunately, the answer is negative. Even though we are aware of these fundamentals, we often forget it. So here is a screenshot of the searching for role equals button in the public www.com, that's the actual site. You can see so many results are being displayed. For the sake of time, let's look at two such concrete examples. Note the markup in the screenshot, which I highlighted, but let me expand it. It's a div. And the similar kind of things is being used, tab index 0, and so on and so forth. The irony is, this is a promotional post about a book on accessibility. And look at the markup in this screenshot. It's a span. It is one of the most popular web email interface. I hope this is evident that semantic HTML needs more love. But semantic HTML sometimes may not be enough. There are scenarios like where we have custom widgets like drop-down menus, accordion, type ahead. We do not have any corresponding semantic HTML for this. Rather, these elements are composition of several semantic HTMLs. WAI ARIA addresses this gap. WAI ARIA, which is the abbreviation of Web Accessibility Initiative, Accessible Rich Internet Application. It's a set of additional HTML elements which enhances the accessibility of web content by providing extra information. Primarily, ARIA attributes are of three categories: role, state, and property. So role defines what an element is or what it does. For example, if I had role equals menu, it would have suggested that there are a list of available options. State conveys the current state of the element. For example, a pop-up menu is expanded. The input provided by an user is invalid. And property adds additional information to an element, like relationship. An example of property would be ARIA described by ARIA controls, ARIA owns, and so on and so forth. But something worth noting out here, that semantic information provided by ARIA attributes will supersede the native semantics. So button with role equals link will be considered as a link, not as a button. Thus, the first rule of ARIA is not to use ARIA if semantic or native semantic HTML can be used. Use ahref instead of role equals link. The next fundamental that I'd like to talk about is focus management. Let's revisit the insufficient tab navigation video. On activating the profile icon, a modal is displayed, and there is no way a keyboard user can quickly or immediately interact with the actionable elements in the modal. We could have avoided this by managing focus. On UI update, if the HTML element corresponding to this dynamic container could have been focused, we would have avoided the insufficient tab navigation. So any focusable element can be focused using the focus method on it. But if that element is like a div, which generally we use for a container, tab index -1 attribute is needed. Focusing a container programmatically also serves as a guided context switch. So any subsequent tab press will focus the actionable or focusable elements within the context or next to the context. So let's take a look at one video and consider the new tweet interaction out here. When this new tweet modal appears, the input area is focused, and any subsequent tab press focuses the following actionable item, like the emoji picker button, and so on and so forth. I call this guided focus management. This is totally my term. You probably won't find it anywhere. The guided focus management enhances the keyboard user's experience. But also, a screen reader will read out the textual content of the focused container. Let me see if if it works properly. So that a visually challenged user or visually impaired user will be able to know what are the changes happened in the UI. Dynamic web applications can largely benefit from this, especially single page applications, page and route transitions. So this video demos the guided focus management in action. Let me see if the voice is turned on. I'll just quickly check it. Yeah, it's on the headphones, so let's present it. So in this video, you can see the guided focus management in action. I'm accessing LinkedIn.com using VoiceOver, and notice that when the UI gets updated, the screen reader will read out the textual content of the updated UI.
Visited link, feed, links menu, link, skip to main content, link, accessibility feedback, visited link, feed, visited link, home, visited link, my network, visited link, my network. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control, Option, Space, Advertisement. Your 184 connections saw abandoned literos. No hashtags. Once you follow hashtags, you will see that here your contact import is ready. Connect with your contacts and links menu, link, skip to main content, link, accessibility feedback, visited link, feed, visited link, feed. You are currently on a link. To click this link, press Control, Option, Space. Show Launchpad cards. Sarvadhan, prepare for a career opportunity with 3 steps. Advertisement, premium. Sarvadhan Bandio KIA, link, image. Sarvadhan Bandio KIA, link, www and beyond. See all premium features.
So this was totally because of focus management. All the containers which are getting updated are being focused, and that's the way screen reader is reading now. So guided focus management is great, but there are limitations too. There could be situations where we cannot shift the focus from the current context. For example, type ads. The focus always needs to remain in the search box. In such scenario, once again, ARIA to the rescue. We can programmatically highlight the desired options to give a visual clue, and we can use ARIA for spoken feedback. So let's see this video in action. I'll be using once again VoiceOver to access this type ahead. And you can see that focus will always stay in the search box, and even though when I'll be using the up and down arrow keys, the options will get highlighted and the VoiceOver will read out the current content of the highlighted options.
VoiceOver on Safari, localhost colon 8080, window, Wikipedia search has keyboard focus. S, 10 suggestions available. Use up and down keys to navigate followed by enter to select. S, no suggestions available. FAA, 10 suggestions available. San Marino, text, Sanskrit, text, San Francisco, text, San Francisco.
So the credit goes to ARIA Live Region and ARIA Active Descendants. When I talk about accessibility, I really get excited, and I can continue speaking about accessibility. But the clock suggests that it's time for me to pause. But if I could summarize this whole presentation in 2 sentences, they would be: get romantic with semantics, and focus on focusing. Accessible user interface is always a better user interface. I hope now onwards, all the UI that you develop will be accessible by default. Last but not the least, thank you all for listening, and thank you EmpireJS for this opportunity.